You from New Jersey?
I guess in terms of comedy, though, both you guys, we're having you guys on in honor of Black History Month, like I said, and just talking about me and Rich are obviously another focal point of the show is just the stand-up comedy world and all that usually. How about for you guys, growing up as kids, who were your, favorite comics, kind of looked up to, helped get you guys into, inspired you guys getting into the business?
You know what? I wasn't really like in the stand-up comedy when I was a kid. I just knew the basics. Like Eddie Murphy. I would watch Comic View every now and then. Okay, so it wasn't until I was heavy in my like.
Interesting. What's it like? How old were you when you started? Did you start when you were in your early 20s, or did you start a little bit later?
I started late. I started when I was like 30, maybe.
Okay, cool.
And that's when I started paying attention.
All right,
but
nice.
I like Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, the big basic stars, but you weren't. That's honestly though, when you start comedy later, it's you're coming in with different life experience. Usually, if you start as a 20-year-old kid like me, and I'm sure I don't know Todd if you started when you're younger, but you're kind of starting because you're like a lifelong comedy. Like, I've been writing comedy bits since I was a fucking middle schooler, before I started doing it. How about you, Todd? Were you a comedy kid growing up, or?
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, like, I started doing stand-up when I was 17.
Okay, wow.
Before I was doing stand-up, I was like, I was incessantly like watching like Comedy Central specials, like HBO specials. And the weird thing was, like, I was more into like the specials than like the 5-minute like feature sets that you'd see on like the Tonight Show. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah, for sure.
I was more to like, oh wow, the new Carlin special. I just want to see how he structures it and all that stuff. And I was like, how could he do that? I always felt like it was almost like impossible. It was like that must be hard, like carrying all those jokes and balancing that up in your head like that. And then like I just got the courage to do it when I was like 17. I think I was like, it was like at a Hamburger Harry's on a Tuesday.
Okay, nice. It's a legendary Mike spot there.
Yeah. And it was like a 4:00 open mic or something like that, or 5:00. And,
I think it was Wednesday. Wasn't it Wednesday or something?
Yeah.
Wednesdays at 5. Wednesdays at 4. That sounds like a good open mic.
Wednesday at 5 or something. I think it was. I think he's right. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Hamburger
it was one of his early.
Where was that at? Where was Hamburger Harry's at? That was in the city?
Times Square.
Yeah, Gladys Simon and her husband Bob. Her and Bob used to run. He just passed away right before the pandemic, unfortunately. But everyone used to go to Eric Andre. You name it, man.
Yeah, that was a good like Midtown one, and like Maui Taco was another one, kind of the same, vein in a restaurant. We got lots of good comics. There wasn't that many open mics in that area at the time. That was like another real good one, if I remember.
Do you remember the Monday open mic at New York Comedy Club? It was like 5
o'clock. Yeah. That's what I started doing way back. I did that, and then I wound up being a bar back there, and then I cleaned the club every Thursday for a year for one 5-minute spot.
Nice. That's how you do it. That's how you get those spots. Either selling tickets on the corner or cleaning the bathrooms up. It's.
The funny thing is, you look back at those days, it almost looks like fucking like you're watching Goodfellas. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what was that, the 1970s? This was so long ago. It's just so, like,
the early 2000s, but. How about you, Todd? What was like your and I guess when you you guys are kind of on the opposite ends of the spectrum, because starting at 30 is pretty late, starting at 17 is really early. That's kind of before you even have as much life experience as you do, just interest and passion and, just motivation to do it. But did you have like a single special that really stood out to your head, like Eddie Murphy Raw, Delirious? Like for me, I'm a little bit younger, I'd say, so it's probably like Chappelle's Killing Him Softly or the Chris Rock Bring the Pain, but like that late 90s, 2000s kind of era for me. But is there like a single special that stands out for you guys?
I'll tell you one thing that did stand out, where I started to really understand like the therapeutic value of stand-up comedy. I remember I might have been like, maybe I was young, maybe in my teens, and I remember watching a Comic View comic talk about masturbation.
Okay, nice.
It was.
It sounds like a believable bit on Comic View. I believe it.
it was at a point in my life where I think I was like embarrassed about masturbating, or like, that's like some shit that you just didn't admit to.
Yeah.
And watching him talk about it, it just kind of like took all of the shame and guilt away. And that was like one of the first times when I realized, like, dang, like how like seeing somebody put themselves out there on stage is like an active service to the audience. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. Now you can really take a taboo subject and turn it into something funny, and like, really just changes your concept of, how the power of words, and like, you know what I mean? They can be used for,
That was like a defining moment, because like after that, I just wasn't really, it really wasn't an issue. Like I just was like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
I think that was even before I even thought about doing stand-up comedy.
Yeah, before you even got into it.
It was to put yourself out there and like be honest about what's going on with you.
Yeah. But that's the idea. Those are the good ones. How about for you, Todd? Yeah. Is there a single special for you?
Well, I was watching a lot of specials like before I got into it, but I think definitely like Bring the Pain was like something where I was like, oh, this is the type of stuff I want to do. Like I can kind of do, you know what I'm saying? Like, like sort of like a Black Carlin, because I'm a big Carlin fan, and seeing Chris Rock doing that, where it's like, oh wow, he's touching on these basics, and he's also like bringing his own perspective and doing something new with it. You know what I'm saying?
No, for sure.
Yeah. Like the Black people versus niggas thing was really hilarious, and I was like, oh wow, that's something that's like people, that's something people are afraid to talk about, and I'm like, that's dope. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, for sure. Like Chris is saying, he's really bringing like taboo subjects to a different level, and making you laugh about it, making you think about it. And so, would you say so? You're a Carlin guy over a Pryor guy, because those are like really thought of as the Beatles and Rolling Stones, so to speak, but the all-time two greats. A little bit of a. How about you, Rich? You're from the era. You have a Carlin or Pryor? You got a preference?
You know what? I seen Carlin about 5 times.
Okay, cool.
And I tell you what though, Pryor over Carlin, but Carlin's great, and a lot of the stuff he talks about is like it goes with what's going now about the government and everything. Pryor knows just by I was a big Red Fox fan. That's when I started. He had the original Party album, so I was into Red Fox. I loved Red Fox, man. He was great. My grandfather was a comedian, so I'm like a second generation. But I liked Red Fox. Pryor's the Carlin. I mean, Kinnison. Got to see him too. I mean,
oh, nice.
love all different comedy.
Yeah, I as well do prefer Pryor to Carlin as well. I think that Carlin's a little bit, especially more relevant these days, but Pryor was just fucking funny, man. Like he was just hilarious on stage and everything. It's
yeah, absolutely.
I've got like my, I've got my 5 people that like I like and that kind of like sort of, influence me, and those are like basically George Carlin, Richard Pryor, Lenny Bruce, Sam Kinison, and actually Andrew Dice Clay. Because Andrew Dice Clay was
nice.
He was like
that
one
surprises
of the
me.
Huh? Yeah, he's like one of the first comics I saw. I think he was like the first comic I saw on TV when I was 5. Andrew Dice Clay.
Yeah.
And like it was weird. I think it was like some holiday party with my family, and I saw this guy doing like dirty nursery jokes, like Hickory Dickory Dock, and I was like, I ran over. I called him, you gotta see this guy. I can't believe he's doing, nursery rhymes.
I know, how perfect for a 5-year-old future comedian. Andrew Dice Clay. Like, this is fucking. No, he was one of my as a kid. Me and my brother would listen to his comedy albums, and that was one of the real influences for me. And kind of in a different way from Chris Rock, but just saying things that shouldn't be funny, but somehow making it funny. You know what I mean? Just the outrageous nature of it. Like, it's a little bit of a mindfuck thing going on where there's like a, hypnosis that Dice Clay is doing on everybody to make it work. But
yeah, he's like an absurd character. It's like it's almost. I mean, people say about Andy Kaufman, but I feel like he's like he kind of fits the bill with that,
And now he's like evolved yet he's never left character, but he's aged his character where now he's kind of like an old neurotic Jewishy kind of guy, you know what I mean? But he's still like in a crazy character,
He looks like Tootsie.
Yeah, he seriously does. Those fucking huge glasses and all. Like
now that they can be transgender Tootsie, but he also is a really good actor. If you like, watched him, he's like really good.
I mean, fuck yeah, Ford Fairlane. I've seen it, but he had the
Woody Allen movie he was in. He was great in that.
Yeah. Was that Blue Desert or something like that?
Blue Desert.
He was really good in that. As
how
well
about
as
Chris?
Star
Who's
is
Chris?
Born. Huh?
Who's were Chris's idols?
I think right now I really like Patrice O'Neal.
Absolutely, one of the greatest.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Patrice O'Neal, Bill Burr, and
I can't take the Bill Burr voice. I love him, but too much. It's just too whiny,
He's kind of suffering a little bit of just like raw overexposure for me a little bit at this point. Like I recognize he's the best, but I'm ready for a fresh voice in comedy at this point. But
really, well, I really like both of those guys' style. Like conversational.
yeah.
I was just kind of like free flowing. It sounds like a conversation.
Patrice is definitely maybe a little bit more under the radar. If you're not familiar with Patrice, you gotta. He unfortunately passed away kind of right before I say he was about to really hit the next level.
Possibly one of the greatest comics ever.
Yeah. He was heading in that direction for sure. But and honestly, dude, as well, most of his honestly, he passed away before podcasts were kind of a thing, but most of his greatest work was in the radio format because he's just so good at like long form conversation and stuff. But like if you YouTube him on the Opie and Anthony show and other kind of his own Black Phillip radio show that he did, but his stand up on stage stuff is great. But as well, like Chris said, he's for long form conversation and whatnot. It doesn't get better than Patrice for sure, but
yeah.
And I'd love to hear Patrice in today's fucking crazy racial climate with everything going on, where the black.
Hit it on the head.
What's up?
Some of the stuff he was talking about years ago is relevant even right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Go back to Jersey, you moron!